Welcome. I'd like to share a couple of stories from judging competitions. But first of all, can you remember where your love of flowers and flower arranging first started? Like me, it might be wandering around your grandparents' garden. I can remember the vibrant colours of spring, the sweet smell of roses in summer, the seed heads of autumn, the chrysanthemums, the dahlias, and also my grandmother who used to cut fern fronds, spray them silver and gold for Christmas, and bring them into the house along with things like buried holly. It was inevitable that one day I would join the National Association of Flower Arrangement Societies that we refer to as NAFAS. At one of the first meetings I went to, the national demonstrator on stage said, "You just have to say yes. Yes to events, yes to workshops, and yes to opportunities." I wasn't quite sure at that time what opportunities meant, but I'm so thankful that when I had the chance, I trained as a demonstrator, speaker, and then judge. The latter was primarily because when I give presentations, I'm often asked to judge competitions at clubs. And I thought I would be better informed. I would sound maybe like I knew what I was talking about when I was up on stage, and that it would also help my flower arranging. When I get the opportunity to judge a full flower show, it is a thrill. Just imagine this, a hall full of pristine blooms, super designs, and it is just you and the judge's steward. For a couple of hours, it is like an earthly paradise. Hard work doing all of the comment cards, of course, but it is a privilege. As a speaker in particular, I'm often asked to do presentations outside of NAFAS, and along with the talks, there is often a competition to judge. Now, it's not necessarily flower arranging. I've judged photography, cookery, woodwork, and craft. But using the skills that we get within NAFAS, you can apply it to other disciplines too. One particular afternoon, I did rather wonder why they'd asked me to judge the competition. It was how many things you can get in a matchbox. And I thought, surely it's just a numbers game. And alongside each of the 20 matchboxes on the table was indeed a number. But I went along and had a look. How many things would you think that you could get in a matchbox of this size? 20, 30, 50, 78. I hardly believed it. And I looked inside, and there, yes, there were 78 items, all different. Surely that was going to be the one that won, but I continued. Imagine my surprise when I came to one that had 162. It didn't have a list by the side of it of what the items were, so I opened it. Inside, white grains of rice. 162 grains of white rice. So the question now for me was 78 different things or 162 grains of white rice? Well, if you're ever in any doubt, the thing to do is to go back to the original wording, the rules, the competition schedule, and then ask the organisers. So I went over to the chairman and I said, about the dilemma. She looked at me, threw back her head and laughed. "That's why we've asked you to judge," she said. Well, as every judge knows, you have to make a decision. So I thought about the NAFAS competitions manual, weighing the criteria, artistic merit, the principles and elements of design. Well, that didn't apply here. Practical merit, things being in pristine condition. Again, that didn't apply. And as far as interpretation, well, that was giving me a bit of a challenge. But the fourth item on the list is distinction. And I thought that the items in the 78 certainly had a wow factor. They showed ingenuity. And I reminded myself that in flower competitions, it isn't necessarily the person who's got the most flowers in an arrangement that wins. So on this occasion, less was definitely more, and 78 won. Thankfully, everyone was happy. On another occasion, I was giving a presentation at a horticultural club, and before I spoke, they asked me if I'd judged the competition. There were 3 classes of exhibit. The first one was craft class. Again, I was able to apply the artistic interpretations and the practical merit from our weighing of the criteria within NAFAS. The second class was 3 flowered stems of shrub in a vase. Unfortunately, all of the competitors, apart from one, had used herbaceous perennials and annuals. There was only one that had got 3 stems of shrub flowering. So that was the clear winner. The next class I felt so much more at home with. It was a petite class. I was expecting something like this. The dimensions that were allowed were 9 inches by 9 inches by 9 inches, diameter, height, width. When I went over to the show bench, however, what I saw was more like the one behind me. And they had used dahlias and chrysanthemums, full, huge blooms. There was only one competitor that had kept within the sizing. The others 15, 18, 24 inches. So again, it was easy to judge. I gave my presentation, and at the end of the evening, the chairman called out, "Susan is going to announce the winners of the competition." She thrust a piece of paper in my hand. I looked down. I read the names. The chairman had won both the horticultural class and the petite exhibit. What I was very thankful for on that occasion was that it did give me the opportunity to applaud every single person that had entered the competition, because it is a case of the more the merrier. The more entrants any competition gets, the better it is. And to be honest, the plant material in the big petites was actually quite stunning. My grandpa Bert would have been very impressed at the full-size dahlias and chrysanthemums included in the designs. And all of the exhibits in both the horticultural class and the petites, I would have been very proud to take home with me. After, as I was packing away my boxes, just before I headed off to my car, an old lady came up to me, leaned in, and she said, "I've had a lovely time. I've won something in the raffle. I enjoyed your presentation tonight, but why? Why did you disqualify me? I asked her what she'd done, and she'd done one of the petite exhibits. So I explained about the sizing and that you weren't allowed to exceed the dimensions. She leaned in at me and she said, well, you do need dominance. I agreed, but I explained to her it's dominance within the scale of the exhibit. She then went on to explain that she'd started a flower club 50 years earlier, and then said to me, have I told you I'm 97? Wow. I was impressed, and I told her she was looking really good. She then continued to debate, and it was clear that she thought that she'd won, or she should have won rather. She then said to me, you do know that the judge isn't always right. I smiled, and we agreed eventually to disagree. And with that, she went off, headed towards the door. But before she left, she turned round and she said, I've had a lovely evening, dear. Thank you so much. Have I told you I'm 97? And with that, she'd gone. I felt shell-shocked. I felt like I'd been in the ring with Lennox Lewis and then been run over by a bus. I finished packing up and headed back home. But as I was driving along, I started to cry. Well, there were tears running down my face. I was actually giggling uncontrollably. I had to pull in and stop the car. Wasn't she incredible? She was 97. She still was going to a horticultural club. She was entering competitions and she was debating with the judge. How inspirational is that? Now, I'm not encouraging you to give judges a hard time. Please be nice to them. But wasn't she just such an inspiration? 3 years later, I went back to that same club. Fortunately, on this particular evening, no disqualifications. And just as I started doing my presentation, I looked up, and who should be sitting in the middle of the front row but the lady, and she must have been 100. And she winked at me. I'm not sure if she just had something in her eye or if she was warning me that she was going in for round 2. I'm so pleased that I met her, because it made me realise that you're never too old to enter, that you're never too old to learn new things, and that you're never too old to debate. So please, considering entering competitions. It will help your flower arranging. It will stretch your creativity. You will have a chance to do things that you might not do at home, try different styles of exhibits, and it will be supporting your club, your area, and the organisation as a whole. And whatever you do, please, when you go along to events and competitions, applaud every single person that has taken part, because it is by everyone coming together and competing and entering and enjoying our flower world that the beauty and the depth of our competitions can be fully enjoyed. So thank you from me, everyone that's involved in show work. You do bring joy, beauty and colour into our world. And I think that is something definitely worth celebrating. Thank you all. and cheers.